where I put it on my social media, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, where the universe or whatever doesn't meet you at the heart of your struggle. It meets you at the depth of your surrender. And so that is the middle way. The middle way is not about striving. It's, I suppose, being. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've heard something which I would like to adapt and put into my life. It's almost like a sexy indifference.
Yeah.
Where it's, you're happy for things to go well. You're not super focused and, everything needs to go a certain way. If things don't go your way, that's okay too. So it's kind of just, I think the sexy indifference is kind of just you are as happy and as content either way, whichever way it goes.
Sure. Well, so much of life is, we have the illusion of control, but we're actually not in control. You know, we just create these stories that give us the feeling of it. So if you can surrender, I suppose it's that non-attachment, right? Of Buddhism. If you can surrender to the process that's unfolding in front of you and not attaching to an outcome, then you are walking that middle path, right?
Yeah. And I think that's also difficult as human beings, creating these stories, putting classifications on things and, expectations and our human idea of, how things should go and how things should be, when the life around us, I mean, as we see nature, animals, they're not striving the way we're striving. A tree isn't trying to grow.
Yeah.
It's just growing. It's 100%. Not 100% fixated on that growth, whereas we as humans are fixated on the next moment, the next hit, the next bit of pleasure. And I think that's why, obviously we have the mental cognition, but that's why we are so unhappy as opposed to looking at the dog, which is truly fully present in whatever it's doing in that moment.
Totally.
Thanks for the coffee.
No, absolute pleasure.
We have started.
Okay.
We have started. So Blackout Brew. This is your wife's spot just across the road, eh?
That's right, yeah.
So I'm chatting to Sean Johnson. Bro, thank you very much for coming through. We're going to touch on, your rugby career, ultra marathons, and then your company, your business, structural medicine.
Thank you. Yeah, that'll be great. It's going to be a good chat.
All right. So I think first off, let's get into, obviously you played professional rugby. So let's maybe just touch on that initially. Were you playing in school and then you saw you were good and wanted to pursue it, or, how did that come as a career path?
Yeah. I played at school. I don't think I was very good, but I had this idea that I wanted to be a professional. I was 15 when South Africa won the Rugby World Cup. And so the game turned professional very soon after that. But rugby for me was always a vehicle of acceptance. And, I can say that now looking back on my career. But I was at Grey in Port Elizabeth and then Dale College in King Williamstown. And I arrived in a new city to start high school at a co-ed school. I'd always only been to traditional boys' schools. And luckily for me, a lot of Joburg primary schools, English schools, don't play rugby. So when I arrived at school in grade 8, I became Sean the rugby guy because I'd played since grade 1, So it was always my sort of vehicle of acceptance. And it's what I wanted to do. I spent a year it was Rao when I was there. It's now UJ. I spent a year there and then dropped out to join a rugby academy down in the Eastern Cape. And it kind of, I wouldn't say I was in the system. I made like an EP under 21 side. I left. I spent a year playing in Bloemfontein. I made it was called the merit side at the time. So I made the Griffins merit side. And then spent some time playing in Durban. So I was a bit of a traveler. And then I went to Australia.
What position did you play?
I was a prop.
Okay.
And loose forward all through school, and then made the transition. I was getting thicker but not taller when I left school. And I spent some time playing in Australia. And it's quite strange, but I came back from Australia and actually quit rugby. I was 25. I retired. I just wanted to travel. And, as fate would have it, a friend and I were down watching the Springboks play in Durban. And after about a case and a half of beers, we were in some pub in Belito, and strange enough, a guy that I had played with club rugby a couple of years before was there, and we got chatting. And he said, no, he's at the Pumas, and they've got a shortage of props. He'll chat to the coach. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Didn't think much of it. And I mean, that was Saturday, and the Monday afternoon, he phoned me. He said, Sean, listen, the coaches want to have a look at you. And yeah, I kind of took off from there. I spent 5 years at the Pumas, 5 seasons. And then in my final year, I was at the Falca on the East Rand. And then my body said, look, it's time, right?
This was your 30s.
The year I turned 30, yeah. So, in hindsight, you could probably have pushed it a bit more, another year or two, but I can remember the guys always used to give me crap, the body armor. I would put on two contact things, and, the younger guys in the squad would laugh, but I'd say, you'll see one day, you'll get there. And it is when you wake up in the morning and it's not fun anymore, then, it's time to leave it behind.
So you said it was a way of acceptance, the rugby. Was it then a difficult, losing your sense of identity? Was there a massive identity that you had rooted in rugby, professional rugby player? Was it difficult for you to stop, not only maybe for the identity aspect, but then obviously other reasons?
Yeah. Look, I went from playing to running a rugby academy. The funny story is I actually retired from rugby, and I was like done. I didn't want to coach. I didn't want to do anything. And I actually opened up a treatment clinic, which we can chat about later.
Yeah.
And about 2 months in, Candace, my wife, fell pregnant with Lake, our oldest now. And, any entrepreneur will tell you when you start something, it's slow. No one, is earning huge amounts of money right up front. And so to pay the bills, I took a coaching job. I was down at a rugby academy down in KwaZulu-Natal. So I didn't, perhaps those 2 years of coaching and running an academy, there was like a slow, I was still part of things, but I wasn't playing. And I was working with young guys under 20, so 18 and 19-year-old guys straight out of school. And yeah, look, when I finished there after 2 years, I was done. I wasn't, and I don't miss playing. What I do miss is being super fit and, getting out of bed in the morning without aches and pains. And obviously the sort of the bonhominy of being, in a squad of 40 guys every day, you're hanging out with them. There are no sacred cows. There's joking and laughing. And, I'm still friends with guys. I might not see them very often, but, we chat every now and then. And I think it's, you kind of form bonds. It's like anything, if you take a group of people and you pressurize them, that pressure actually bonds them together. So, I've still got, close, friends with guys that I might not see them for a while, but when we chat, it's like we right back there, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's special. I think we as a society have kind of lost that, unless you're playing team sports. I mean, most people now, their connection with other people is online, social media, WhatsApp, whatever, as opposed to obviously team sport, and that environment was different, but it was a pack. It was people that were in difficulty together and suffering together, which then obviously helps you bond. Whereas I think that's why a lot of people maybe are dealing, well, a large reason for unhappiness, I think today, is the lack of face-to-face human connection.
Totally. We very, as a species, we're very, very tribal in nature. We don't like to admit it, but we are. And so I think society has lost a lot of that like sort of communal, I always joke and I call it pack living, like animals are pack animals. We are actually pack animals. And, there's been a slow sort of decline away from that. I think COVID accelerated it. The last, 4 or 5 years, it's got worse. But we actually, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. And so I think relationships are sort of degrading. And, it's something I talk to my boys about often. We've, as a tribe, we've kind of 200-300 years ago, if we were still living as a tribe, there would have been a transition from boyhood to manhood. There would have been whatever it is, whether it's going out into the wild and hunting a lion by yourself, whatever it is. There were rituals in place that facilitated that through tribal living. And without that now, we don't have that transition. So we have a lot of, young guys that haven't been through this passage of a rite of passage, I should say, sorry. And I think we can see it in the relationships within society.
Yeah, I think, we see it. Fortunately, being in South Africa, we do see those rites of passage within African cultures. And I think I don't know maybe our parents' years was that rite of passage was going to the war, going into the army or whatever. We haven't had anything like that. Our equivalent, which isn't the equivalent, is going to university now.
Yeah.
And that's not a rite of passage in the same way where it requires you to become an adult, because only I think once you're in the workforce and you see the real world, or have you, been exposed to it, and you haven't had that rite of passage before that. So you almost instantly shocked. I mean, I remember I was at such a privileged school, very sheltered, which was, I wouldn't say it was by design to shelter you, but it was just because it was a good school where majority of the people had enough money to have good lives.
Yeah.
So it was very sheltered in that sense, but it was a complete culture shock when I got to varsity and I was exposed to millions of different people and different types of people with different interests. And it just, I think there needs to be that rite of passage to almost transition you from your sheltered younger life into adulthood. And I think now even more so, there is less of that because of social media and because of you grow up being on your phone, then you go to varsity and you don't have to leave your dorm. Maybe you can go to class, maybe it's just online.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't even need to go to varsity, you can stay with your parents. And it just shelters you. And then you don't have a real expectation of what the world actually is.
Totally. You'll know, the world isn't, you can't live the world through a flat screen. And I think a lot of young people are. The experience of the world is through a device, whatever form that takes. And our biology, our nervous system is not designed for that. We should be moving through, I call it time and space, but moving through an environment. That's when our nervous system is at its best, facing sort of challenges, whatever that is. There's, modern challenges. I think the sort of like a search for food and stuff isn't really a challenge nowadays in the society we live in. But, we have this disconnect from each other because we're experiencing life through a device. And I think, I don't know, I hate being like a doom-monger, but I think we're going to battle in a few years' time with people sort of, no resiliency within their nervous system. They can't regulate themselves. And we regulate best through the nervous systems of others. And so if we don't have that human connection, everyone talks about self-regulation, and it can be done to a degree. But our first form of self-regulation is through our primary caregivers, and that kind of imprints on us throughout our lives. So you're going to have the best way to regulate yourself is with people in your environment, good people, Negative people will obviously give you a different sort of regulation on your nervous system. But I think going forward, we're going to battle as a society.
And I think, face-to-face type of things like this, people worry about AI, they worry about all of these things. But I think if you look at what we're doing now, AI can maybe somehow create us sitting here and talking, but it will never be able to give people the same amount of intrigue of an actual person. Things like live comedy, music, like live music, that kind of stuff, I think is always going to be, and I think even more so going forward, because we're constantly lacking the human, contact. We are living on our phones, watching TV, never need to go out. Uber Eats comes straight. You don't even have to go to the restaurant. So I think there is going to be a massive desire for watching a real person. And I think because we want to, I mean, how connected do you feel with the people at a concert? Or even though if you don't know them, you never talk to them, but you're there for the same purpose. You aren't as much telling yourself the story of who you are. You're just experiencing a real person who's expressing themselves, and you're receiving that, as opposed to some artificial thing that's created something, because you can't replicate a real person on stage, and the experience and how you receive that, as opposed to something AI can make. And AI can make you and I sitting here probably perfectly, but it will never be as and give the intrinsic value that I think real people can.
No, look, I agree, and it boils down again to you speak about a concert that sort of I don't know, 10,000 people, or even you go watch a rugby game. Talk about home ground advantage. There's an advantage, right? You've got 60,000 people in the stadium willing you on. Everyone's nervous system is wanting the same thing. It's all experiencing the same thing, and there's power in that. So yeah. I mean, you can pick up AR images, and I mean, I'm sure it'll get better where you won't be able to tell the difference. But I agree. I think there will, as long as we are in this form, there will always be a need for, I don't want to say real touch, but real connection, real sort of bonding between people.
Yeah, I think maybe until we can prove 100% that AI is conscious. Because if we realize there is consciousness within the AI, and they are aware of the experience, and they have like self-reflective consciousness the way we do, I think then maybe, because then they're as human technically as we are.
Yeah.
If they have that self-reflective consciousness, the experience might be different, obviously being a robot, but whatever. So you talk about the nervous system, then let's go into your business, structural medicine. So elevator pitch type thing, kind of like what is it?
Yeah, this is the eternal question, right? And it is so strange, because I've done, I don't know how many podcasts, maybe 10, I think, in my time, and I battle to answer it, right? I'm a body worker, and I've studied different things. The primary thing that I use is something called Bowen therapy, and it comes from Australia. It was developed by a guy called Tom Bowen. He passed away in 1982, but it works with the fascia, the nerves, and the lymphatic system of the body. The whole point of what I do, with all the other things I've accumulated, is to change nervous system state. So if everything is dictated by the state your nervous system's in, so behavior, thoughts, positioning of your body in space.
Can you hold that thought quickly?
Everything is pretty much determined by nervous system state. So the work I do is all about generally down-regulating the nervous system, bringing it back to what's called social engagement. And in that state, the nervous system is in like rest and relax. And it starts to regulate itself. It starts to fix and heal. And, we design that way. We are a self-regulating organism. If you cut yourself, you don't have to think about sending platelets there and then white, fighter cells, and it all just happens. There's a intelligence within you that's running everything. You can call it, in clinic, I call it innate intelligence, but you can call it your soul, or you can call it, it depends on your religious beliefs. You can call it different things. I always joke and I say, if you were into Star Wars, you'd call it the Force. But there's something within you that runs things, and it runs 80% of your functioning, right? It's autonomic. You don't control it. So very often, our back pain, our knees, our digestive issues, our headaches, colic in babies, all of these are because of the state of the nervous system. So if you just change the state of the nervous system, the neural tension through the body drops, the lymphatics change, and the body starts to function like it should. So, structural medicine is just the name of my clinic. People often say, I've never had structural medicine. And I go, neither have I, because there isn't a modality structural medicine. And my treatment methods continue to evolve as I evolve. So how I'm working now is very different from how I started 18 years ago. Bruce Lee said, take on board, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, take on board what is useful and discard what is not. So as I learn something more that can help someone or benefits more, is more effective, I take that on board and I'll release something that I find isn't as effective.
So regulating your all of that, what do you do in treatment?
Okay.
With obviously it's very client specific largely.
Yeah.
But how do you work with someone? Because I did come for a treatment, and there was some touching and moving my body and all of that, but it felt different as opposed to like going for a sports massage, going to the chiro. What kind of work do you do on the body that maybe differentiates how you deal with clients as opposed to that?
Sure. My work's quite gentle by comparison to some other modalities. We take on the view that a traumatized body needs a different type of touch. A dog that's beaten is not going to correct itself with more beatings. It needs something different. So my work's quite gentle. It's all hands-on. Primarily, I'm addressing fascia, sometimes nerves. And it's all about changing the tensegrity in the body. So there's a natural tensegrity, which is like a push-pull throughout the body. And this allows us to stand upright, and it allows for effective movement. So if you see like a ballet dancer moving so gracefully, or, an athlete, or, if you look at like a batsman in cricket facing a bowler, I mean, that ball comes so quickly and yet they can move so efficiently. It's really the fascia that allows that in the body. We think it's muscles, but it's not. The fascia is really the sort of I don't want to say primary driver, but the nerve impulses are transmitted through the fascia, and then the muscles kind of catch up with it. So it's a really interesting, and it's a slightly different concept. We think that our skeleton is actually what keeps us upright, but it doesn't. The skeleton is like floating. It's suspended within the fascia. If the skeleton was holding you up, if you blacked out, you would remain upright, right? But we don't. We collapse. And it's because the tensegrity leaves the fascia. So if consciousness isn't there, and this is, perhaps consciousness is transmitted through the fascia, because when we're not there, the fascia will kind of just release and we fall on the ground. So my work is, I use a lot of sort of rolling movements over fascia. I'm generating what's called piezoelectric charge. Piezo means pressure in Greek. So if you stretch fascia, a charge builds up. And what's really interesting, perhaps this is the chi that the Chinese were talking about, I don't know, thousands of years ago. Each person comes in, two people can come in and have the same back pain, but the cause of it is completely different. So I'm constantly looking for what's root cause dysfunction. And it's sometimes difficult when people come in. I had a lady in today. She bit down on a sweet last night and had like major jaw stuff. And the first thing I started working on was her stomach, right? The stomach organ. And she must have thought, what is going on? But, this is where the body's pulling the most. And so I've got to release that before I get into the jaw type stuff. So I'm just kind of guided by what the body is showing me. I try not to overthink things. When I was younger and starting out, there's this like mental process that's kicking in the whole time, and you analyzing and assessing. And, it's pretty much like ultra running. If you think about why you're doing it, generally you're going to come up with 1,000 answers that you shouldn't do it. So, it's the same with treatment. I try not overthink what I'm seeing in front of me. I just treat, and I trust that what this person's nervous system in front of me is showing me is what they need.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned releasing some of the stomach and then maybe making your way to the jaw, the face, or whatever. And that's what's so fascinating about the human body, is that you got a back pain, but the root is coming from your foot.
Yeah.
Or, you have, gut problems. But the gut problems aren't because of what you're eating. It's because of the amount of stress in your life.
Totally.
And
totally.
the human body is far more complicated than I think we actually believe it to be. I mean, if you look at the human body, and this is, maybe more of something I heard within like a Buddhist teaching, but it's fascinating how, how to almost look at conflict in our lives and to see it as maybe there's going to become peace afterwards. It's, if you look at how your body fights germs, that's conflict on one level, but it's making you feel better on this level to be healthier.
Yeah.
So that difficulty in your life now is conflict on one level, but then on another level, it's almost peace.
Yeah.
So that difficulty that you're facing there can be then now peace on a different level, maybe in the future or wherever it may be. But the fact that our bodies are without our control, our willingness to make it happen, fighting off things, doing things, and a foot problem causes a back pain and you think it was the deadlift, but actually it was just because you've been walking funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so fascinating how we think to fix the body, we need to believe what we've always been told.
Yeah.
And not see that there actually can be new understandings as time goes by.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or maybe going back to like the ancient body teachings.
Everything is cycles. And, as much as we have modern medicine, a lot of that is based on this older, sort of more traditional, let's call it natural medicine. It's just, medication has been synthesized and it's easier for us to access. So, I mean, there's benefits to that. And, knowledge is knowledge, teachings, ancient teachings 3, 4, 5,000 years ago are still applicable to our lives today.
Same bodies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our nervous system hasn't changed much in the last 100,000 years. So we are living, just kind of circling back to those screens and stuff. We are living in environments that don't serve our nervous systems. And, we're not changing at a quick enough rate to actually keep up with technology. And so this is where we having all of these like anxieties and depressions and, like all of these behavioral things. It's simply we need to be a little bit more in touch with nature, and less, under fluorescent lights, less sedentary, moving around a lot more, getting out in the fresh air and the sunshine and just, being part of the environment that we were actually created from.
Yeah, I think that's also, you say created from, and I like that. And Alan Watts says something where he says, when you're born, it's almost like your parents are like, well, welcome to this world. You are other out of this world. You're in the world, but you're not from this world, almost like you're secondary to the world.
Yeah.
As opposed to a baby's born, it's like, welcome, you were grown from this earth.
Yeah.
Because you are grown. You're grown in the womb. You're not suddenly put on the earth. You are as much part of this earth as a tree is part of this earth.
Totally.
So you need to be exposed to the same sunlight, rain, earth, all of these things the same way plants, animals, and that need to. And I think it will help regulate our nervous system so much better by doing that. I mean, speaking about the ultra running, I feel so much better, even after a 10K run, being out in nature. I feel better after walking without shoes on the grass.
Yeah.
And that's just a little bit of connection to nature, which, our modern time has kind of pushed away from us.
Totally. That's what I miss so much about trail running is that kind of just strapping your supplies to your back and going, you just by yourself in nature, or unless you're running with someone else. But I love that solitude of, breathing in the dust around me and kind of moving over the land, whether it's going over a mountain or you're in forests or whatever, because you can just feel how your nervous system regulates, right? You feel calmer, you feel more relaxed. And I think I think if there was a return more to like that sort of living, a more tied to nature living, we would have less of the things, the sort of, especially in younger kids, less of the issues that we have today. If you look at us, we are a tree pretty much. So a tree has its roots in the soil and then its leaves are up, breathing in the air. Our lungs are the same. So we have our diaphragm. Our lungs act as the leaves, right? We breathe here. And then the tree's roots would be in the soil, and we carry our own soil in our gut. So we are so linked to nature, and yet we are living outside of our, of where we should be living. And this is something, the Chinese have a concept of yin and yang. So like male and female, right? Everything's in balance. And I use this in clinic. Intrinsically, as a female, you have more yin energy because that's how you are created, and the masculine is a more yang energy. And these two energies hold, because energy is always looking to balance itself. So these two energies balance each other out, right? If you as a male start to be more yin, or as a female start to be more yang, for whatever reason that is, you burn yourself because you are operating outside of your natural operating process. And so this is when we get, fertility issues, ladies can't conceive, men have low testosterone in society. We are, I don't know, I think we're messing with that balance, to be honest. And as a result, we're paying a price because it's, if you're designed to be a power lifter, you can run ultras, but you're gonna battle, So I definitely think if we came back more into alignment with how we're supposed to operate, it would be a lot easier for us.
Yeah, I think that instant gratification, because we are the smartest beings on planet Earth. We have the ability to make everything easier for ourselves.
Yeah.
But through making access to food easier, away from the dangers of the weather, other animals and all of that, we've safeguarded ourselves from that. But I think we've introduced ourselves to the mental issues.
Yeah.
Because the moment you don't have a worry about protecting your family from a lion or whatever, your worries are, what did that person think of me? And we because our worries are so minor, but we don't have the extreme worries that, if we look at our country, there's a massive amount of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
The happiest people that I've seen most of the time are the people in more poverty than the richest people. And the people in the extreme poverty, it's because they're not as much consumed by all the outside world, as opposed to they're just worrying about how much food's on the table at the end of the day. So they don't have the luxury of worrying about what the neighbor thinks of them as much. They don't have the luxury of worrying about that gossip, that bit of, obviously it's still going to be there, but it's far less because it's less of a concern, because it's like, what do I care about that person, what they think about me? I can barely give my kids food tonight.
Yeah.
And our problems are so minor.
Yeah.
How am I going to make my car payment? Like that's not an actual worry. That's a easy worry to have.
Totally. It's created, right? And Carl Jung, one of the sort of original psychologists, he said, man needs struggles for his health. They are essential. And it's true. The moment I sometimes think we are created to struggle. When we don't have, exactly, just answering to what you've said there, when we don't have struggles, we create them for ourselves because we need them. And so I think our basic biology is really just about, I need to survive and food. And if we have those two things, we're happy. And so in modern society, we've got that. And now we need more struggles. So now we're going to stress about paying cars, paying insurance, paying life insurance. Then we're going to stress about, okay, well, I need to drive a Ferrari because my neighbor only has a Porsche. We create these things that are actually not necessary. And whether it's created for us to be consumers, I don't know. Or, are we just creating them because life's become a little bit easy? I definitely think, and no one should be living on the streets suffering. And I don't think that's the type of struggle that we need. But I definitely think there needs to be some form of struggle and fight, because it's, just from my perspective in clinic, your nervous system has a baseline functioning, right? And when you experience stress, you come off and you move into spinal sympathetic. So it's like fight or flight, all right? And so what happens is the body primes itself for this, floods it with cortisol and adrenaline, and you become irritable. If you've ever lined up before a race, or you got on stage before a show, you feel that those butterflies, you can feel that priming of your nervous system. And then when we've overcome that, or the stress goes away, we come back to like social engagement, right? Baseline functioning. But what happens is our baseline function actually rises. It comes up to meet the arc coming down. And so this makes us more resilient, right? So we're able to deal with stress more. In today's world, we don't have that we just stuck kind of in, so like baseline functioning, homeostasis. And so our nervous system hasn't learned to cope with stress or struggle. And so when the smallest thing happens, we can't cope. We can't deal with it,
I think that's why people like us go do ultra marathons.
Yeah.
But I think that's also, actually first going back to the consumerism thing, or if it's just, we want an easy life. I think it actually just boils down to evolution and our evolutionary, adaptation of the better car you have, the more accepted you are in society, well, what we perceive to be more accepted. And the more accepted you are in society, the more esteem people have of you. So that means you're going to progress more. Yeah. You're more safe. That means people will protect you. And it's all tribal.
Yeah.
Because the more money you have, the more society thinks of you, the more they hold you up, the more you're protected, the easier it is to find a mate, the easier it is to reproduce. So I think it's all actually subconsciously just the, process of evolution and adaptation to our times. It's,
totally.
Maybe it's the same as the guy that, all he could think of, or the guy in the tribe, all he could think about was having the most cattle.
Yeah.
And now it's just the guy who wants 6 cars.
Yeah.
Essentially it's the same thing, but just in a more privileged
with
time.
more technology. I get it. Yeah, that's very true.
What are we talking about there? The last bit?
Ultras?
Yes, the ultra. I think that is humans, and that's where I've also battled with and come to terms with a bit better now, was because I was constantly, and that's also we were talking about the middle way, I was constantly striving, constantly pushing, and it was, I would say, coming from a point of trying to get acceptance from the world and acceptance just of myself and to be able to love myself. Then I kind of grew and started to be able to love myself despite anything I've achieved.
Okay.
And despite any darkness within me, what light, whatever, and just, acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
And that helped. But then I got to a point where I strove and was striving for things less, because I was like, well, I don't need to strive. Am I just striving for that for acceptance? Am I just trying to look for, a reason to feel like I'm appreciated? But then as humans, we're looking for the good problems to have, or looking for certain challenges to set. And, if you aren't working towards something, you can be unhappier.
Sure.
So I think as humans, to have a good level of happiness, even if you don't actually achieve the thing, I think you do need to set goals, and they need to be realistic, healthy goals where you don't massively sacrifice other aspects and important aspects of your life. But I think to get happiness, as you mentioned, we do need certain goals to work towards that require a bit of hard work and discipline.
Totally. That speaks to purpose, right? We need goals, and people will go, we live in this world where it doesn't actually matter, but it does. We need to be able to get up in the morning and have some form of purpose, and that takes on different things for different people. But I totally agree with you. We need goals. We need something to work towards. And, I don't know who I had this conversation with the other day, but I was just saying, life to me is not about working to pay the debit orders at the end of the month. That's not purpose. That might be a goal, but it's not my type of purpose.
No,
not my type of goal, So, I even I think Carl Jung said again, life has no meaning. It only has the meaning that you give it. And so, however you want to take that, whatever goals you want to chase, whatever you want to achieve, that is your purpose. But I agree, there is an element of it's just a purpose. It doesn't mean anything at the end of the day because we're going to leave this place at some point.
Work all your life to try achieve something, and then you're gone. And, the world continues. That shopping center is still open. That's still going.
That's it,
you didn't, when you passed away, in any way, once you're dead, know anything about what you did on, like, what's the point?
It doesn't mean anything, So, goals are important, but also I think there needs to be some sort of balanced perspective on it, I think a lot of people, and, to speak to how you said, if you've got the most money, you're pretty much higher up in society by today's standards. But, chasing money without real perspective on that brings its own issues and own problems.
Yeah, money can buy happiness, it can buy sadness too.
Yeah.
So, and poverty can buy happiness and buy sadness as well.
Yeah.
And there was a quote I read the other day. It was something along the lines of, I'm actually probably going to butcher it, and it's probably not going to make any more sense. It was something about, if you're constantly striving for the future, or you're constantly, unhappy with what you have now, all that is just a reflection on, your inside. Like the inside of how you feel, how you view the world is just a reflection on you.
Totally.
If you find someone that's constantly complaining about other people, constantly upset, constantly talking bad, constantly negative, that's just a reflection of what's on the inside. And that's just their relation to the present moment, because the present is literally all you have.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have those goals, but we never, and I think that's as humans where we get caught, is there's not going to become a static point that we get to of happiness.
Yeah.
There's never, you wanted to be a professional rugby player, you achieved that. Not like you're like, okay, cool, I'm done for life. Now my happiness can just, or I'm going to run that ultra. My happiness is going to be good. The next day, you're like, okay, well, what's next?
What's next?
So like that's, as humans, I think because of the impermanence of life, we have to understand that everything, that whatever comes is going to go.
Yeah.
So
totally.
To hold on and to attach and give designated qualities and
importance to
stuff, I think is the roots actually of unhappiness.
Totally. Attachment, right?
Yeah. So the ultras, how many did you do in a year? What was your most?
Look, I started running late. I was 40 when I started running, and I overcooked myself. But I did. My goal was to run 5 in 12 months, and I managed to do that. Everything, they're all nothing less than 100 kilometers. And all trail, obviously, not on the road. I'm not quick enough to run on the road.
Was that your reasoning? Because I'm always curious as to like why some people get into trail, why some people prefer comrades, that kind of stuff. What for you do you think was?
I think I hate road running. Well, look, to be honest, running in general is not like an amazing activity. Like
afterwards is great.
Afterwards, yeah. I enjoy trail running because it forces you to be present. I find, and I've treated a lot of road runners, and this is not, if you can only run on the road, do that, please. But road running, again, is a lot about time, splits, performance, where trail is, you actually have to be very much focused in the present moment, because if you put your foot wrong, you're gone, right? So I find you have to really concentrate. It forces you into the present moment, where I find running on the road, you can kind of switch off, your mind wanders, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did a lot of my training on the road. But again, I don't know if it's a disease I've got. I like to just, and the bit you've told me about yourself, you seem that way as well. Like I like to go to that edge, to explore that edge and see what's on the other side without dropping off. So yeah, I actually, in lockdown, like YouTube, I watched a lot of YouTube. I didn't work for 5 weeks. And there was this random, I don't even know how it came on, but there was this documentary called The Why. And it was Why Run 100 Miles. And I was like, who are these crazy people that run 100 miles? This is ridiculous. And I watched this documentary. And what I saw there was maybe it was the Western states, right? So they take 360 odd people, and maybe 10 of those people are running it as a race, as a competition to see who can podium. And everyone else is running to finish. What got to me was there were normal people, what I perceived as normal people, non-athletic, like
people with full-time jobs.
That's it, yeah. And I watched these people go through what they went through, and I was like, I want to know what that feels like. And so, yeah, I just said, well, I'm gonna try. And my first race I did was the 65K Sky Run that same year in November. And I mean, this was April I started. I almost died. I was completely unprepared for the terrain. If you don't know, the Sky Run is completely self-supported. You navigate yourself, you carry your own food and water, you drink what you can find on the mountains. It was just incredibly tough. I was unprepared, but I finished and got in the car the next day to come back and vowed never to run again. I wanted to give my stuff away. I was so sore. And the guy who I ran with, we were coming back and we said, okay, well, I got over myself. We said, we'll enter the 100 kilometer the following year. And it's always difficult, that 2020, 2021 was very difficult, training wise, just because of lockdowns and curfews and that sort of stuff. But finished the 100 kilometer. And, when I did that, I was like, okay, well, now what? I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do.
I got to the edge, but I realized I wasn't near the edge.
That's it. And so that's the thing, right? You, like anything in life, you climb a mountain and you get to the top and then you realize there's just another mountain down the road that's even higher than the one you're on. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I can run 5 of these in a year, which I managed. The only one I didn't finish was a 100 miler. I got, which was the Karkloof one in September. But I think I just, my nervous system was already giving off signs there that it wasn't happy. And there was my watch started updating during the race. I couldn't navigate. I got something called the wobbles. Like if I'm not looking at the ground, I'll fall over and it's dark. I can't see anything. It was just a very, very tough race. And so I pulled out at 121 kilometers.
So you actually got in that race what you're looking for though?
Yes. And, I can still remember I got to an aid station and I knew, like I'm done. And so what's great about, most races at the aid stations, people are so supportive and they'll do anything to help you and get you going. And I was about to pull my tracker off and this woman said, listen, just stop. Let me go get your wife, because Candice was seconding me. She was following me, and have a chat. And then you decide whether and I just said, you can get her, but I'm done. I can feel in my body, I'm done. And I just heard Candice coming around the corner saying, he'd rather die than quit. So if he's quit, he's
about to die.
Yeah.
Literally.
So I pulled my thing off, and that was the one race I didn't finish. But yeah, each one is like kind of an adventure, and 95% of it hurts like hell. And then 5% of the race, and I'm convinced you go like into a hypoxic state in your brain. You like blissful, and I'm pretty
like
sure
flow state.
And I think this is what, 20 years of meditation in a cave gives you.
Yeah.
You can just run an ultra and get the same sort of stuff. And that's why I ran, really, for that bliss state. And I think, when you, it really does develop a form of resiliency. Not that I think I needed it. I just like to explore it. So,
well, you also just, I think, wanted to push your resilience.
That's it. Yeah. And also maybe, I was 40, 41, 42, and I was running all of these things. There's a part of yourself that realizes you're starting to get older now. And there's a part of yourself that doesn't want to let go of that warrior like aspect of yourself, because you can't express it, in like heavy weightlifting or rugby or contact sport, because your body just can't keep up. But strange enough, as you get older, your endurance increases. So that's why I ran a lot of these things. It was simply to explore that, and also to go and there's some ego involvement there, saying, well, I'm doing something that most other people will never do ever. And that's what I really, really enjoyed, especially as like my physique is not leaning towards a 50 kilogram Kenyan guy, right? Even at my lightest, I would always start a race at like 105 kilograms. And then the 1 year when I finished Sky and I ran it in a keto state, I was like 101, which I hadn't been since I was 20. So
how did you find, preparing and doing the race with no carbs?
For me, it was amazing. When I was really lucky, actually. I have a patient. He's run many ultras in his life, and he was running in the 70s and 80s when, we didn't have the technology we have now. He was telling me how his seconders used to run with buckets of water next to him, like just insane stuff. And he saw on social media that I'd bombed the Karkloof, and he sent me a whole lot of articles on like fat adaptation. And he just said, if the speed that you're running at, you don't need acceleration. Have a look at this, have a look. And he sent me a whole lot of stuff, and it made sense. And I started listening to a lot of guys, I was doing a lot of research. And so my final race, the Sky Run 100 for the second time, I did on keto. And it's actually, I must say, it was about the best I felt. It was a very tough Sky that had an incredible amount of rain, like in the previous weeks. Even the winning time was 2 hours slower than previously, right? There was just mud, -6 at night on the mountain. It was like miserable. It was really miserable. And I felt really good. So I know it's not for everyone. And I mean, some people run better on carb. That's 100%. Then do that. I'm not an advocate for sort of ketogenic running. But if you are interested in kind of, I did find I could go longer. I didn't have those sort of spikes. My gut was pretty good in that time. Whereas I found if I was using sugary drinks and, the gels, which I hated, I very rarely used them, it would just upset my gut.
So what are your food source, like your fuel? What are you supplementing with?
Nuts, Drovos, like sugar-free Red Bull, those sorts of stuff.
Boiled eggs.
Hey?
Do eggs?
Yeah, eggs.
I've done a few cycles where I also want to keep my carbs low, and I just boil some eggs.
Yeah,
some nuts, even coconut, a little bit of coconut.
Yeah, peanut butter as well. You get like the peanut butter sachets, and I find that's amazing. But again, it's not for everyone. But I do find, like for me, for my body type, I really found it helped.
Yeah, well, because I Monday to Friday probably have less than 100 grams of carbs a day.
Okay.
And then, but high fats, probably in like 1,000 calories of fats a day. So because with fasting, I'll be able to do like a 5-6 a.m. session like today. So today I have eaten now, but all I had was a salad before this. But yesterday, obviously I had a lot of fats.
Yeah.
This morning I went to gym, and then at 10:30 I did a 10K.
Okay.
And those were both fasted.
Jeez.
And I wasn't even that hungry. I just ate because I don't want to have some brain fog or whatever while we're chatting. But I find, I can do 5-6 hour cycles with my dad in like a zone 2 on completely fasted.
Yeah.
And I don't need any fuel, maybe some rehydrate, electrolytes, but that's it. And I attribute that to the high fat volume that I've got in my diet.
I agree. I would do most of my training runs fasted. And then obviously the longer ones, when you're spending 4 or 5 hours out there, you need to obviously supplement. But, if I looked at my stats over 100 kilometers, my body was burning 17,000 calories, which you cannot replace. You cannot eat 17,000 calories in that time. And it's actually amazing how far you can go without, we have this sort of, and I don't know if it's a marketing ploy, we need this and that, but it's amazing actually when you just let your body run like it's supposed to run, how far you can actually go. So, I found with like keto, when I was fat, I didn't eat a lot. Actually, I didn't need to eat a lot. Yes, hydration, obviously, but even I train now in the gym. I don't eat breakfast before I go, and I'm like fine. I don't. I think if you're a sprinter, then maybe you need the hit of glucose. But generally, I think you can get away with lowering your carbs.
Yeah, anything I would say, like if I'm doing a 21 where I'm gassing it fully, I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll have some carbs. Maybe halfway through the race, have a gel.
Yeah.
But if I'm just doing a chilled zone 2, I can easily do that 21, absolutely fasted, and at no point feel any fatigue in terms of I feel like I need, to replace the energy that I'm burning. And I think my initial training was in the bodybuilding world, where it was 45 or an hour before your gym session. You got to make sure you have your oats, or straight afterwards, have your protein shake, as you get into the change room shaking. It's like your body can handle so much less of, the exact timing that you need to. We are a system as much as a lion is a system.
Yeah.
Lions aren't eating constantly.
No.
Lions, they chow. We as humans, I don't think because a lion will, if it has a kill, probably chow as much as it can and then sleep for 16 hours. But we obviously can't do that. So we do need to be a bit smarter with the amounts that we allow ourselves to eat. But I think, and I know how my mental function and my body's ability to be able to perform has improved so much with fasting. I think I did a fast once. I might do it again just to test it.
Yeah.
But I did a 48-hour fast once where it was just water. And after the first 24 hours, or maybe it was like 32, and I woke up on the third day or the second day without eating.
Yeah.
It was as if I ate dinner that night before.
Okay.
And it was honestly fun.
Yeah.
As long as I had my salt and had my water, it felt like I was fine. As the day progressed, I did obviously get a bit hungry because I was like, I want to try see if I can train after not eating for 30 hours, which maybe I shouldn't have. But subsequently, once I'd eaten, I could eat 600 calories because my stomach had shrunk in that time. It felt like I had overeaten. You have a salad and a chicken breast and it feels like you've overeaten. But it just shows how your body adapts to what you're giving it. And also just, the cleansing process of fasting. And I find my brain, because how my brain just hops around everywhere. Yeah. It allows with fasting for me to be able to focus.
Sure.
And also, I think it's also maybe with fasting, how when I eat, because it'd be in the evening, I'll be like, okay, now I get to chill. So if I eat early in the day, my body's like, okay, cool, now you can chill.
Okay.
So, like that Christmas lunch or the Sunday lunch thing. Yeah. We have Sunday lunch, you just want to have a nap afterwards.
Sure.
Sometimes I have that in the middle of the day and then I'm like, time to sleep.
But it just shows you, what ketones do for your body when you're not eating, when you're not consuming things. I sometimes think, just with the visceral work I do, fasting is really good because you give the gut a break, right? It's constantly processing things. And any sort of inflammation in the gut is mimicked in other places, right? Our brains, the rest of the body. So if you are giving the gut a chance to just reset and recharge, there's this knock-on effect through the rest of the body. So I totally get what you're saying. If you... I don't know if you've done it. You probably don't. But if you've eaten like a chocolate, if you keep your carbs low and you hit a chocolate, man, it totally changes. You can actually feel the change in your body. Yeah.
I know, but also maybe that's not the best advice to give people. But I know, let's say I have a really bad weekend. I just fast on the Monday for 24 hours. Make sure that I am reducing the amount of calories that I've eaten in that day. And it's completely offset at the bad weekend.
Okay.
So those, obviously it's also my body type and the training that I do. Yeah. But it's amazing how you just maybe longer than normal what you would have done, give your gut a break, give your body a break. Don't constantly be fueling it.
Yeah.
And you can offset the damage that you might have done for a bad weekend or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But no, absolutely. With my biggest thing and how I've tried to structure my eating is less about calories and more about how the food makes me feel.
Yeah, totally.
So if I wake up the next day and I feel like I've got a food hangover, I'm like, okay, I ate wrong.
Yeah.
That even though it was a healthier pizza, it was still a pizza with too much dairy, too much cheese or whatever.
Yeah.
Avoid the cheese. Okay. You know, you went for the burger and you felt completely fine the next day, but don't now think you can always eat a burger because obviously maybe you're just eating less in the day.
Sure.
But it's always just trying to, okay, I feel good the next day, or I don't need to sit on the toilet for an hour. And that's always how it's been. And I think our bodies function better that way as opposed to the stress, because I found that also constantly being fixated on how many calories, constantly being fixated, I can't eat that, can't eat this. It's like putting strain and stress on your nervous system.
Totally, yeah.
And your cortisol is going to be higher.
Yeah.
And all of these things. Whereas if you are slightly more relaxed within reason and kind of guiding based on feeling and how you feel.
Yeah.
You know, if I feel light and ready to go run and I had a burger the night before, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if I feel, and sometimes it feels this way where I'll have a massive salad with maybe a lot of fiber, I don't feel light the next morning.
Yeah.
So I've seen like, okay, it doesn't matter if it was the healthier option, it's too much fiber.
Yeah.
So have less fiber. So that's kind of how I've been trying to structure it and trying to just get away from calories, 100 grams of this, 200 grams of that. Because it's very unhealthy to constantly be living that way.
Sure. And it takes, I mean, it's, you know, food is a joy.
Yeah.
It really should be. And it takes away that joy if you're just counting calories constantly. So I think it's a good way to do it on feel. Like I know myself, I tolerate rice really well, pasta not so well. So, you know, I do eat pasta, but I'll always go, if I'm wanting to like refuel on carbs, rice is a better option for me, you know. I find like sourdough bread I'm okay with, but I cannot eat, I don't want to say any brand names, but like, you know, the processed white bread that we get, normal bread. Like my stomach just bloats and I can feel immediately. I'm like, look, this wasn't a good idea. I'm not good with potatoes. I'm not good with sweet potatoes. I love fruit. So like I find, you know, if I need like fruit is good for me. How I eat might not be for you, or it might not be for someone else. We're a system, a biochemical system, and we process things differently.
I had a friend of mine, she went on a diet. It wasn't like a super strict diet, but it was a more, I don't want to say it was like a blood type diet, but it was more homeopathic, working with the body. And she needed to, not to lose weight as much as she just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
So she did the diet and she realized almost her entire life, she just always didn't feel good. And that's how she thought she felt. Then she started eating healthier, cutting out, limiting certain foods. And she's like, I feel amazing. I didn't know that the bad that I felt was abnormal. I thought that bad was normal. And all it was maybe not even introducing exercise, but it was just changing the types of food she was eating, and it completely revolutionized almost her baseline feeling.
No, for sure. I mean, I get this in clinics. So people will come in and I'll treat them and they get up and they go, I feel so light. I feel like, and I go, you know, the sad thing is this is how you should feel all the time. But life puts the stress on you, and you know, you're carrying it like a weighted vest pretty much throughout your life. And most of us don't realize that. You know, most of us think, you know, to have back pain is normal. It's not normal. As we get older, if you get to my age, it does become a little bit more normal. But it is. There's so much. I think modern life stops us from that like regulated feeling, that like feeling of light, that feeling of flow, that feeling of my body functioning optimally, you know, because we eat processed foods and we drink water that's not, I mean, it doesn't look anything like water, you know, and we don't get out in the sun, and we don't move enough, and we don't have these close social connections. And if we just maybe made a bit more effort for that, going back to that, we would have that, like, my word, this is life. This is, you know, when I talk on these things, whether it's corporate spaces or wherever I am, I'll say, who slept on the floor last night around a campfire close to your family? Who got up when the sun came up? Who went to sleep when the stars came out? No one does this. We don't do it anymore, right? But this is the problem. So you have, those are the inputs your very ancient nervous system needs. But what are the inputs you're giving? You're on a screen till 12 at night, so your melatonin only kicks in an hour at 1 o'clock in the morning, where it should start working when the sun goes down. We're not connecting with people. We're sleeping on beds that are, fabrics that are not great for us. We're very sedentary. We're under fluorescent lights. And these inputs into the nervous system give us an output, and it's not a positive one, right? We have health stuff, and it's so easy to fix. It's small changes. And I think the biggest change you can make is diet. Just change, what you're putting in. And I think 80% of the battle is won. Like movement is good, exercise is good. But really the biggest input into your body to make a change is around diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Because regardless, obviously to a certain degree, you maybe can offset your diet a little bit with training, but not as much. Like unless you're running an ultra marathon every weekend, it's okay to have a terrible, terrible diet, but you're not going to feel good.
No,
but 100% the better and cleaner I eat. I mean, I know, like I mentioned, let's say that bad weekend. I'm slightly more sad, beating myself up a little bit more, slightly less positive, less energy. And all of that is just because my body's like, we had a half an hour, 30 minutes of pleasure while we're eating that food.
Yeah.
But now we got to pay the price.
Yeah.
And paying the price is the negativity, is a bit of feeling more depressed or feeling more lethargic. And all of these things kind of compound and just make for general unhappiness. Whereas, yes, sometimes you can be unhappy because other people are eating pizza and you aren't. But that sacrifice now has, massive payoffs.
For sure. I mean, you don't seem like a guy who drinks a lot. But even now, like with alcohol, I find if I have 2 drinks and I don't drink a lot at all, the next day I just feel terrible. And it's not a case of, it's like even just 2 glasses of whiskey, you don't feel great. And it's just, when you're young in your 20s, you have this resiliency in your nervous system to cope with that. But as you get older, you don't. And I think it's important. I mean, you've done the right thing, right? You've started this like journey when you're young, and that bodes well for when you get to your 40s. Most people, drink, eat whatever they want, and they develop these negative habits, and they get to their 40s where it really starts to count now. I need to watch my diet. I need to limit my alcohol intake. I need to exercise more. But the habits they've built up don't allow for that. And,
So making that change is so difficult.
It is, yeah.
Bro, I don't want to take up more of your time, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So for anyone that wants to, come book a session with you, your website, I'll put it in the description.
Thank you.
WhatsApp, what's the best way to get in contact? Website?
Yeah, you can, just my website might be easiest. Structuralmedicine.co.za. My Instagram is Sean Johnson Structural Medicine, Sean Johnson space Structural Medicine, I think.
I'll put all the links.
Okay, yeah, cool. And then you can, there's booking links on there if you want to book an appointment. It explains a little bit more about what I do. But even that, it's, it's not.
They just need to come and see it.
Yeah, the website doesn't cover everything.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys, for watching. Cheers.